coming at you live from all over Ohio. A Cleveland Browns podcast full of laughs, rants, fun, and stats. A place where all Browns fans' voices are welcome and heard. A show that aims to inform and entertain you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Barking Browns Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode 109 of the Barking Browns Show. I'm Jacob. That's Nick. We are brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Homage Apparel. Nick's got the one that I don quite a bit, the classic Cleveland Browns Brown Health. I got the NFL Jam Myles Garrett new cup going on. If you go into the description down below, if you're on YouTube, there's a link to their Cleveland Browns collection, so you can go check that out. A lot of really cool stuff, and we've been told a lot of really cool stuff coming as the NFL season is right around the corner. So they're going to have a lot of cool things. So keep posted over on Twitter and here, and we will keep you guys posted for that. In addition to Homage, we are repping our Discord, guys. We got the Discord going. There's a link down in the description down below. It's $10 a month, $100 for the full year, so you'll get 2 months free. We'll be running some promos and knocking that price down here and there and doing some things like that. It's going to pay for itself. We got a pair of Zach's and more over there. Zach and Kenny, I can't think of all their names. We got some really awesome betting folks over there. It'll pay for itself. You go sign up for it. They're hitting on bets every single day. So you get the money back. Plus we got our rumors and all kinds of other conversations and stuff going on over there. So you check out the Discord. We got a lot of stuff going on over there. It's a lot of fun. Nick, how are you this evening?
I'll tell you what, in the intro, part of the clips that you had so thoughtfully put together, I've got the Cleveland Browns training camp 2022 hat. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm thinking about how we're right around the corner. Tickets, I think, go available next week. So maybe
13th, I believe. Yeah.
So we're right there. We're gonna have to get some updated training camp 2023 gear when we're up here.
Was that like a week from tomorrow? I think.
Yeah. So that's gonna be exciting.
We've been told by Andy. Andy's like, I'm gonna be in the Bahamas, so I need you to get the tickets for us. So I'm like, that's a thing. I hope he's listening. He's just in Vegas. I hope he's listening to me make a really terrible impression of him.
Shout out to him, by the way. 149th place in the
out of like 10,000.
Yeah,
that's a stupid successful night, man.
Good for him. But I'll tell you, you know what? I'm just excited. I'm excited because all of a sudden we're getting to the point where we're going to start having some more concrete things to talk about. Yeah. I feel like in general we get to this part of summer where we're like, oh my God, how are we going to make it to training camp? And all of a sudden, it's creeping up a little bit closer.
It just like sticks its head out from behind the bush, and it's like,
like that meme.
Sup, dog? And you're like, all right. Shit. I had a pen in my hand and I threw it down on accident and it hit me right in the chest. And I thought everybody could see it, but I don't think so. I think it was too low down to make it work. So it is what it is. A quick programming note. Next week, we will finish up the AFC North divisional rival series, looking at their offseason. Had a little bit of trouble booking a Baltimore Ravens guest. And by that, I mean I forgot and then remembered today. And, I remembered yesterday, but it was the 4th. So next week, we will have I know I'm going to butcher his name, but let's find it down here. It's Kevin Ostreicher, I believe is how you say his name.
Okay.
He's the managing editor over at Ravenswire for USA Today, and he's also the host of Locked on Ravens. So he will join us next Tuesday. We'll be back on our normal time. We were off, switched over a day because of the holiday.
Yep.
So he will be back. He will be with us to look at the Ravens next Tuesday. And the Tuesday after that will be the 3rd annual 53-man roster prediction, because that week is the week the Browns start their training camp because they're going a week early.
Yep.
So I believe I won last year and Nick won the year before. Is that right? Is that something? I know you won 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think I won last year. I think I got tied up in the magic of why can I not Blake Hance and how could it just some guy named Blake? I can't remember his name. And Michael Dunn last year. I think I got.
Oh, yeah, it was the
there.
offensive line.
Yeah, and that was, I believe, that was the tiebreaker that sent you to victory. So we got a rubber match coming up on our hands there, friendo.
Yeah, we're ready to go. So, I've done the Fu Manchu as a punishment. Guys, if you want to choose the punishment for the 53-man roster loser, by all means, please drop it in the comments. Get us on Twitter, or you can email the show at barkingbrownshow@gmail.com.
We like to keep it spicy here. So if you have suggestions, if you're looking to have some fun, we are too. So please let us know. A little comment in the video. We'll read them. We love that. We love the feedback you guys have. And yeah.
And coming soon, I will be getting shot, I believe, 6 times with the paintball.
We're up to 6 times now.
Yeah, it's closed. It's closed. So no more shots, but I'll get shot 6 times.
Probably more.
Let's see what's got. MC says new homage T-shirt. If you're a Steelers fan, you've been trolled by Nick. It's probably fairly.
I've been having a good time.
Accurate. Yeah. We would love to try to get you up there, Josh, because we did have an issue getting you over. You won the tickets last year for training camp, and we had some issues with getting a ride over there, and we just weren't able to make it happen. So we'll see what we can do. We'll try to see what's going on. A loser drinks half a gallon of eggnog.
Oh.
Is that like in a time? Like, do I got to do it in a certain amount of time? Because like I can drink half a gallon of eggnog. Like I'm okay with that. Like, I can do that.
I have a story about eggnog. One time,
yeah, we're 8 minutes in. Let's keep this shit show rolling.
I just need to say this. So one time, I really had craving for eggnog. I really wanted some, and so I asked Vita to bring some home because she was out, and she said, "Yeah, of course, okay." So she brings home eggnog, and we have it in the glass, and I drink it, and immediately spit it out because that eggnog was tainted with vodka, and I just wanted eggnog. I did not want spiked eggnog, and apparently asking for eggnog. Yeah, I'm looking at you. For those off camera, apparently asking for eggnog means that you want spiked eggnog, and that is not no.
If I was buying eggnog for you, I probably would have bought the spiked one. Yeah,
I was so sad.
Dude, I'll tell you, the best eggnog is the one that's mixed with Southern Comfort, but whatever. It's the way Southern Comfort or Hennessy, whatever you want to pick your poison. And you just go from there. So, guys, we're going to talk. We're 10 minutes in. We don't give a shit. It's July 5th. We're here to have a good time. We're going to talk about roster concerns. So we've at nauseum have talked about the roster as a whole, I guess is a way to put it. Talked about it top to bottom. We've talked about all the moves. We've talked about the draft. We've talked about guys taking steps forward. We've pretty well been around the globe when it comes to that. And I was listening to Jake Burns and Andrew Spade talk today on his podcast on the OBR Film Breakdown. Just about like, hey, it's July. we're reaching for topics for at least a couple of more weeks, and we'll kind of go through there. But they, I had heard them and some other people talking about, no matter how much optimism, you're never going to have a perfect roster, and these areas are the biggest concerns. And it kind of got me thinking about those concerns and about why, to me, the biggest concerns I have, I see a path to them not being an issue. I also see a path to them being a major issue. But the good news in my mind, so when I sat down to do this exercise, I talked to Nick a couple of days ago and said, this is what we're going to do this week. He's like, all right, great. So I started working on my side of things, and I sat down, I looked at the roster. I wrote something for Browns Wire a couple of days ago about adding a veteran linebacker just because I think I have depth issues there, and we'll get to that in a second. But when I looked at this roster and looked at the biggest holes, one thing that I noticed was my biggest concerns are all on one side of the football. Now, there's concerns on both sides of the football. There's concerns with, some of the things that happened with Cade York last year. I think Cade York's really the only issue I have on special teams because they signed multiple people that are really good special teams players, like Matt Adams. And there's another one. I can't think of the other one, but they signed a linebacker and a corner that are both really good special teamers that have played Bubba Ventrone. I know Matt Adams is the one. Can't think of what the other guy's name is. But they've signed guys that, like, that's their calling card. That's where they've made their money in the NFL. So I'm not worried about, like, coverage because I think Ventrone and those guys, I think they'll all get that together. There's some concerns with Cade York. I'm not ready to freak out because I do think that this roster is in a place where if he does struggle, I think they'll move on. Like, I think if he comes out there and he struggles out the gate, I don't think you play games with it because I think that this roster is in a place where that you just don't. So I'm really not concerned. I think Cade York will be fine, or they'll just find a veteran that can be middle of the pack and they'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like, one way or another, I'm not concerned about that. There's some issues on offense, but really for me, I think it's all on defense where I'm really concerned.
Well, Jacob, I know you're going to go into defense, but just because you brought up Cade York, I as I was thinking about this question and just like the concerns you have with Cade, I think it's unique because like when a kicker, when you're thinking about concerns with kicker, typically you're worried about accuracy. And yes, Cade did miss some, but I feel like in general, Cade had more blocked kicks than I can really remember in any recent Browns team. And so to me, I just like, and I know we're going to get into defense, but just while we're on Cade, I don't have a great explanation of why the special teams couldn't seem to prevent all those kicks from being blocked. That I think the Chargers game is the one that really sticks out in my brain. And so just as we're moving forward here, I really hope that with Ventrone and with the guys that they've added, that is something that can be solved, because it's like you're not even getting to the point where you're worried about accuracy if you can't get the kickoff. So
yeah.
And so I just wanted to interject that's something that I felt really plagued them last year, and something I'm really hoping changes moving forward. But by all means, I think defense is definitely the key and focus. I just wanted to interject about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a few of those. There was a few. It felt like some things with his placement, with his plant leg, and I don't think one thing that we saw it from the very, very beginning is it's not a concern of leg talent, which is a very arbitrary thing, I think, to talk about. A person's leg talent it's just the things we talk about. But, I'm not concerned from that side of things with Cade. I think that I have faith in the structural things that Bubba Ventrone will do. I think he's shown that he can do that. He's shown that he understands how to lead really good special teams units. So I'm not worried about like the technical side when it comes to like concerns with blocks and things like that. I think I feel good about those being corrected by Bubba Ventrone, like on its own, like right there, just by coaching. I think the coaching of that unit will be significantly better. So when it comes to that aspect of it, I'm with you. I'm not really concerned. I'm not super concerned about confidence with Cade. I'm a little bit. You can't watch what happened last year and not be concerned. I think if you aren't a little bit, I think that it's a little bit like wearing orange and brown glasses. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's a little bit to be worried about with that, but overall, it doesn't crack my top 10 of things. Like if I did you a straight up top 10 of things that I'm concerned about, Cade York's, he might be 10. Let's put it that way. Like he's probably like 9 or 10, somewhere down there where it's like, hey, all of these things, if they're all good, and if the things ahead of him are good, I'm not really that concerned about the kicking situation. Because I think you'll be in a position to win some games with the schedule that you have. But whatever. So we'll move to the defense. You know what? Let's move to the offense first.
All right. Because
it's going to tie into what I have to say about the defense once we're done talking about the offense. And if you've want to comment on your biggest worries, throw them in the description.
Absolutely, please do.
The comments, not the description. I don't know what the hell. It's July 5th. So on offense, I think that your biggest concern should be in some of the areas in which we're projecting. So The biggest concern, and I think that this, in the end, is the Browns' biggest concern, and that's Deshaun Watson. Like, is he going to recapture some of that magic? I have a hard time finding that he won't. Will he get all the way back to 2020 and lead the NFL in passing? I don't know. But I don't think what you saw last year is who he is as a player for eternity, like some people are trying to project, especially like AFC North rival fans and things like that are trying to project. I just don't, because there was a point made, and I think it was Andrew Spade that had made this point, that in terms of physically, Watson wasn't coming back from like 2 season-ending injuries. Like, yeah. And it was a good point. The way he had put it out, I was like, oh, that's a really, like, I hadn't really totally like expressed it in that kind of way, where he's like, you know, like, you remember Chad Pennington, the quarterback for the Jets. Mm-hmm. And oh god, I loved Chad Pennington because he went to Marshall, and so, which is relatively close to where I live, and I had seen him play, and I don't know, he was like a gritty dude, you know, wasn't the most talented player in the world, but he was going to bust his ass, you know, and he was a lot of fun. When people forget he played for Miami after the Jets, and he actually ends up playing for the Dolphins. But he had so many rotator cuff injuries and stuff to his shoulder, he had no arm. Yeah. He had no arm left. And it was like he finally was healthy. He had only been playing a little bit, and he finally was, you know, quote unquote healthy when he goes to Miami, and there was nothing left. I don't think that's a situation with Deshaun Watson. Like, if that was the situation where he was coming off of all these injuries and then got traded and then came out and went and looked like that, and had no arm strength left like Pennington and you know, and all of that stuff, then I think I would be wanting to jump ship to another franchise. If we're being completely honest, because I'm like, you are totally screwed, like, at this point. Mm-hmm. So that is one thing for me. That is why I have faith that he's at least better than that. I don't know. I think he goes back to who he was. I do. But I don't think what he showed, I don't think it makes much sense to think that that's who he is. If you take you take off your glasses, your Steelers glasses, your Browns glasses, all of that stuff, and you just look at it strictly from a football. I've seen way more good football from him than I've seen bad. And there's lots of reasons that we've talked ad nauseum about why the bad was there. So that's the biggest concern overall and on the offense for me. But if I'm going to do this on a scale of one being because you're always going to be concerned, it's never going to be 0. 1 being like and 10 being like, this is a major problem. I'm about a 4 when it comes to that. Okay. Yeah, I didn't even think it was his number. I made a joke.
You know, so you bring up the concern with Deshaun. And I think, like, if you're in a situation where a guy, you know, Chad Pennington's a really good example. I think Cam Newton's another really good example when he was in New England, where you just saw that Cam could not throw the ball anymore. Just because
not past like 10 yards.
Yeah, he just couldn't do it. And so I think a really interesting comparison is the way Russell Wilson struggled in Denver and the way that Deshaun Watson struggled in Cleveland. Russell Wilson is like 6 years older than Deshaun, and he's like 33, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he'll be 34 this year.
Something like that.
Whereas Deshaun is 28 now. And so you're talking about
29.
Okay. You're talking about a guy who's still in his prime. That's fair. I
said let's find out. You didn't. I'm sorry. I looked like I was making fun of you with the face. That's not what.
No, it's okay. Because I got it right here.
He's 27. He'll be 28.
Okay. So that's what I was thinking. So he's going to be 28 this year. And so Deshaun's still in his prime. And I think that is really important when you're talking about a guy and like his ability to bounce back. Because obviously the older you get, I mean, I walk a mile down the street to Panera and my knee hurts. So and I'm 32. I don't know. But my point is, I think Deshaun is still in his prime. And so I have a lot of faith in his ability to bounce back and like you said, it's not like the guy's been rehabbing for 2 years and like really struggling with coming back from something. And I think what is really the centerpiece of the issue, at least to me, when I've gone back and watched what happened, is they offensively tried to install new concepts and adapt to what Deshaun did. But the offense as a whole was not ready or capable. And I think collectively we all underestimated what it would be like to switch because let's be honest, like Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield are both a certain type of quarterback that isn't somebody that's going to move around a ton and isn't somebody that's going to thrive running out of the gun so much, so like Deshaun will, right? And so when you're building up this entirety of a season around one offense, and then imagine here you are going into week 12, and you've got a new quarterback coming in. We underestimated the switch that is. And especially when you're talking about shorter and shorter practice times throughout the year, like to me, that's the biggest reason Deshaun struggled, is because you're trying to run an offense that's not designed for him. And like when I look at it and when I say, okay, how much faith do I have in Deshaun's ability to bounce back? I think I find myself having more confidence, especially when, there's been various reports now. There was just another one today about Kevin Stefanski revamping the playbook, designing this offense for Deshaun, and even the little tidbits that we've seen from minicamp, and I'm sure we're going to see, moving forward once we get to actual camp, of an offense that they are going to be practicing, implementing, drilling into each other's heads about how, because that Kevin Stefanski has gotten the best out of Baker Mayfield. He's gotten the best out of Jacoby Brissett. Why am I not going to believe that Kevin Stefanski is going to get the best out of Deshaun? And so when we're talking about confidence meter, about if Deshaun can bounce back, I find myself higher on the scale. So I guess panic. You said 10 is the most panic, Jacob.
Yeah.
That's the scale we're playing with. I'm gonna call myself a 3. I just think that Deshaun has been good everywhere he's gone, and I have no reason to believe that in a 6-game sample size over the multiple seasons of samples that we have seen Deshaun be great for.
He had 3 really good years, and I think he would have had a good rookie year until he gets
tore his ACL.
I'm going to catch up on some comments. I laughed because I saw a comment that I'm going to pull up here in a second.
Please do.
Josh said he'd make up for the cruel roster loss punishment suggestion with a membership gift. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
You didn't have to do that, but we appreciate it. He says he's not worried about Cade. MC echoes it. Wasn't worried about Cade. Phil Dawson was cut twice. I agree. I'm fine. Phil Dawson was cut twice before landing with the Browns. And yeah, I'm good. So Josh says, I really think even though Watson is a thrower, the biggest worry is that Kareem and Chubb might be pushed to the side. Oh, yeah. I see what he's saying. Yep. Well, I want to say too, you talked about they tried to change the offense to what he wanted. It didn't go well in Houston, and they threw it all out, and he ran a Baker Mayfield, Jacoby Brissett offense the rest of the year. And I think it's just not what he does. They were playing such basic offense that because when you go back and watch it, like the all 22 just watch it, you're like, this is high school shit. Connie says her concern is the current roster is Perrion Winfrey and Jedrick Wills. I think those are both very fair. Winfrey's getting distracted with things off the field. He is. I will point out though that I didn't see it. Physically speaking, there was a workout video. I don't know if you've seen this workout video of Perrion Winfrey. I'm trying to think. Can't think off the top of my head who it was that shared it, but it was a couple weeks ago. You can look it up. Physically, Perrion Winfrey, there's no concerns from there. I'll say that.
That's good.
She says that Will's ticks are off with the missed blocks. Yeah. I think that's fair.
You know what? So not so much from a skill concern, but I think just as an offensive line as a whole, I have concerns about health and about effort, and specifically effort regarding to Jedrick Wills, because I don't think that there's any question.
I think everybody else gives you what they can give you.
Yeah, and so I don't think there's any question about the talent of Jedrick Wills. I just think it's a matter of, is this guy going to, like, okay, so now you're getting to the point where the Browns picked up your 5th-year option and you're playing for your future contract in the NFL. Is that going to motivate you enough? Are you going to be motivated enough to earn that? Because let's say best case scenario, Jedrick Wills plays out of his mind, like the left tackle they drafted him to be. He's going to be in line for a large contract extension. Somebody will pay him if he plays well, because that position is at such a premium. Are you with me, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, his 14 million that's guaranteed in the 5th-year option is chump change amongst the best tackles. I think it's like the 17th highest salary for tackles right now, and that's if nobody else gets a bigger salary. So, yeah, I mean, 14 million is considered chump change at the position, kind of average. So when you think about that, yeah, I mean, he's good enough where people will always give him another. I think he's one of those guys that will always, like, you remember how Greg Robinson got the chance in Cleveland and stuff like that, and things. He can do that because he was such a high prospect with such good natural talent, just like Greg Robinson. So I do think that can, I think that can be where he goes if he doesn't ball out. But I mean, if he balls out this year, they're going to do what they did with Njoku.
Yeah.
Njoku ended up actually getting past his 5th year and onto the franchise tag.
Mm-hmm.
But what they ended up doing was extending him, lowering that cap number, but he was getting more money over the long run. I think that's what the Browns want to do. I don't think they want to pay Jed 14 million on the cap next year. I think if he plays to what he can be, they're more than happy to give him 14 million. Yeah, but it's fully guaranteed. It's like 14.125, which, like, by the way, just in case you're curious, if they trade Jed, the team that picks him up would take the entire salary. I looked it up.
Good to know.
That's just an interesting, because if you're like I think DeJuan Jones will take over there. Like, if you believe that, and I think there's some merit to that argument, I think that can happen. But yeah, no, with Jed's concern. Here's my thing with Jed. He's good enough to be he's an average player. He has the talent to be above average. Sometimes he's above average, sometimes he's below average. But overall, I think he's an average player. So for me, Jed is only like a 3 or a 4 as well, just solely based on the fact that he's good enough to where, with a guy like Watson who can extend plays and escape and do things like that, that doesn't concern me that much on the offensive line, because I think even though, it's this really great unit, I think even if it regresses in some spots, and I think Posick is probably going to take a step back, and I've got some reasoning. We'll get to that in just a second. But, like, I think they're very good, and you know what I mean? I think they're very good enough to where, with the quarterback play, with the weapons, with all of that's going on, the offensive line isn't that big of a concern for me.
Okay. I think I'm at about a 5. And my reasoning is that anytime you spend the 10th overall pick on a guy, I think you'd like to hope that he's going to be a long-term answer for you.
Yeah.
And this is such a pivotal year for Jed and really the Browns overall, that I'm so hoping that, and he's dealt with his own, right? He's hurt his ankles a couple times now. So he's dealt with his own injuries along the way. I just am so hoping that this is a good year for him and that the Browns do extend him and that we can really start to put this narrative to bed. So I'm at about a 5, because to me, I think it's about more than just this year. I think it's about the long term, and I'm hoping we end up there.
Yeah, I just don't think it derails the season. That's why it's lower for me. Is I just don't know that. I don't think he's that bad. You know what I mean? I don't think he's that bad.
No,
some people.
No, I'm not trying to say. Yes, I think I would agree with you, Jacob. Just to summarize, I'm not trying to say he's terrible.
This is a good quote. Njoku said that boy can sling some shit. He did.
Sure.
Connie says Njoku doesn't seem like someone to be the kind of guy who would BS this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it did seem genuine. I'll give you that. It definitely seemed genuine. Here's a good one. I think it would be hilarious to see Nick post a selfie on Twitter wearing a TJ Watt jersey when we face the Steelers if he loses the roster predictions. That is perfect.
So I'll tell you this, Josh. There's been some Steelers fans over the course of time of my trolling of them that have tried to make bets with me that want me to put on Steelers gear if I lose, and I'm that's not a line I'm not going to cross. I won't do it. I'm not putting on that nasty no way, no how, not happening. I can't do it. Those are the evil empire colors to me, and that is why I troll them as viciously as I do. I was just with my cousin for the 4th of July. It was his birthday on the 4th, and I just wanted to inform him that it had been 6 years since the Steelers won a playoff game, and he wasn't super thrilled with that information. But I just wanted to keep him up to date on the facts.
Anyway, the other concerns on the offensive line or on the offense for me, I just worry that with Ethan Posick that it's he's been bad more than he's been good. Now, could that be that? Because some people also say, oh, he's carried by the guards around him. Even if that's true, he still has the guards around him this year, as of right now, obviously. And it could just be that he was used improperly, but I think he will regress a little bit back towards the mean of his career. It's a 2 for me. Like, it's almost non-existent because I think it's again, I think the offensive line is not a concern, but that's the other concern on offense. And then the only other thing I have is some of the projection we're doing for wide receivers, like, because like Elijah Moore, like, we've seen the tape of him being wide open. We've seen his ability. We've seen what he's done with good quarterback play and being utilized properly and all of that stuff. And that is making an educated guess at what he can do. And you can point out why you think it, the data, the proof, the film, all of that. But there is still some projection to guys like him, guys like Cedric Tillman. But there's a lot of proven guys. DPJ's proven he can be good. Amari is a number one. Njoku, Akins. There's a lot of provenness on that side. So projecting 2 guys, Elijah Moore and Jerome Ford, to be meaningful contributors is a little risky. Sure. Just because, especially in Ford's case, because Ford hasn't done any of it other than be a returner. Because at least Elijah Moore can be like, look at these stretches where I was really good. And I think Elijah Moore is just incredibly talented. He's going to have a good year. But in terms of concerns in July, I can say I'm projecting for those 2 players. I'm at about a 3 concerned level on it, and that's it for me on the offense.
I'm really excited about both Ford and Moore. I'm trying to temper it because I think both are going to be meaningful contributors. So my concern, I want to be realistic. I want to be a little bit objective. So I guess with guys that haven't proven it, I'd probably at like a 2. My only other legitimate concern on the offense is just that both Wyatt Teller and Jack Conklin have struggled with injuries a lot in the last couple seasons. And I mean, Jack notably didn't come into camp in the season healthy last year. And I think these are another 2 where if you told me that Conklin and Teller were going to be healthy next year, I'm set. We're set. We're fine on that side of the line. But I think the big concern there is just, can you stay healthy? Because both guys are getting paid significant money. Notably, you just extended Conklin, which I do think was the right decision. But I just I'd call it about a 3 of just their ability to stay healthy, because you desperately need them to.
Yeah, and I think that's where coming in, like, hoping that James Hudson can be kind of that James Hudson can kind of be better, because there's been some issues with him last year, some weird stuff going on. And if DeJuan Jones is up to it, because I think the depth will get tested, but I think Michael Dunn he's brought back. I think Michael Dunn's a good player. I think they've got some depth there that could, that it's going to probably be called upon. So yeah, there's rightful reasons there. We'll go to the defense, and this is where the biggest things are for me. So I said at the beginning of the episode that we were looking at the biggest roster concerns for me being all on one side of the ball. And what I mean by that is just concerns that are at a 5 or higher, concerns that could have legitimate, I don't want to say catastrophic, because I don't even think either of these things are big enough of needs unless there's some injuries, but that's just stuff that you can't project and predict. And that's major injuries to like serious contributors are just not something you can, I confidently project, I think, unless it's a guy who hasn't played in 3 years because he keeps getting hurt or something like that. And it starts at defensive tackle. It's defensive tackle and linebacker. I think they're the ones that really, you're sitting there and you're looking at it, and linebacker is really weird because they didn't really add anybody. They just like kind of retained all the significant contributors outside of, I think they should have brought Reggie Ragland back. Those 4 games he played really well, but they pretty well just ran it back with the linebacker room. They've added some like UDFAs and some things like that, but they didn't even draft the guy. So like I think that's kind of weird. Although a lot of people are talking, well, with really improved defensive line play, we think that those linebackers can at least be okay. And I agree with that. I do. And that's where I'm like pumping the brakes on some of the concern at linebacker. But looking at defensive tackle, it's weird because I love Dalvin Tomlinson. I think he is you're going to see a major change when Dalvin Tomlinson's on the field. Just if you were to right before you go into the season, you go watch some of the defensive tackle play of last year, and you then go back and look at this year and watch Dalvin Tomlinson early. I think you'll see a noticeable difference right away. I think you'll be like, oh, cool. He looks like there's a lot more talent on the field. But after him, it gets a little interesting. But people are saying, I still think they'll struggle to defend the run. I agree. But what I think and why I feel a little bit better, heartburn. But why I feel a little bit better about this being my biggest concern is because of the big picture. And that is, can they defend the run? They're going to be better. Dalvin Tomlinson's really been a better pass rusher as of late, which is really interesting. But he's a good run defender. And one thing I like to point out is I'm not huge on the Siaki Ika pick. I just saw a guy that massively regressed in college from one year to the next. He was fine in stretches this year, but he was also unplayable sometimes this year at Baylor. And that's not great. Now, they also played him. Let me see if I have the number here because it's stupid the amount of snaps he played. Yeah, in 2021, as a 340-pound defensive tackle, they played him in over 500 snaps. There were games where they played him 40 to 50 snaps, and I'm like, you think that dude has
That's a big ask. It's a big ask.
Yeah, it's a big ask for a guy like that. Go look at your defensive tackles, and I don't know what the average is for a guy like that, but I don't think it's 50. You know what I mean? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a statistician. I don't have all the data in front of me right now, but I'm pretty sure that it's not that. So I can look at that thing. And here's one thing I come back to, Nick, with Siaki Ika in the defensive tackle room, just the top two, because I consider Tomlinson and Ika the top two. I think Elliott is probably actually going to be the number 2. I think they want him to be a 3 tech, and we can get into that. But if you took Siaki Ika and you put him on last year's team, he's the best run defender on that team. He is. And that is, he would have been a rookie, obviously, as he's a rookie now. At 335 pounds, I will give him credit. Sometimes he gets blown off the ball. Sometimes it's really frustrating. But he's not this turnstile, or that's not the word. Turnstiles for an offensive lineman. He's not Andrew Billings. He's not this guy that doesn't do anything and just gets blown off the field. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he's bad. But in a lot of situations, he might not make the play, but he can eat blocks. He's a big, powerful player that has a good, sturdy base. And when he plays right, he had a 12.2% pass rusher win rate last year. I mean, we've seen some of it. I like Jim Schwartz a hell of a lot. So I feel pretty good that he's going to work on that. So one thing that gives me a little bit of relief, I don't know, comfort, there we go, a little bit of comfort about it, is I do think that Ika at least would have improves that. Mm-hmm. So you've got 2 players I think can play the run, and I think you can piece together Alex Wright, Perrion Winfrey, Jordan Elliott, maybe it's Mo Hurst. I don't know, but I think you can get enough pass rush. And when you add in the fact that, Alex Wright, Zadarius Smith, they're going to play on the inside sometimes. You got three really good pass rushers. You have 3 really good pass rushers on the outside. And Okoronkwo's, you can put Zadarius Smith in the middle, put Jordan Elliott in there even he can't be too bad to mess that up with Miles and Okoronkwo, Zadarius Smith. Yeah. I think they're going to struggle to stop the run. But I think they're going to be better. And that's why, for me, defensive tackle is about a 6.5. It's about a 6.5. A lot of people, it's an 8 or a 9. If you think it's an 8 or a 9, I understand. You know what I mean? I totally understand. But I think Ika is improvement. Tomlinson is an improvement. And I think the supporting cast and their ability to move guys inside and outside, I think it's going to piece together a run defense that'll be good enough. They're not going to be really good, but they'll be good enough. And the pass rush is going to be great, and so is coverage. And I think that all comes together to where the defensive tackle, it's just about 6.5 on the word scale.
I think I'm a little higher than you are. I'm probably, while I really like the Dalvin Tomlinson signing, and I can see the logic of the Ika pick, I just, whenever you're in a position, and you know what, the Myles Garrett injury last year when they played Atlanta is a really good example of this. Whenever you're in a position where one player going down is going to completely derail the position group as a whole, that is a very risky situation to be. And I'm not saying that Mo Hurst or Ika, or maybe when we get these really excited reports about Jordan Elliott in camp again, maybe that comes
You're not
together.
pulling me again, damn it.
Maybe that comes together, right? I'm not saying these guys cannot step up and couldn't be. I know we're all collectively we're all and you know what, if you go back to our episodes when we were rating the Jordan Elliott pick, we were excited, and I think for good reason. Like there's talent there. There is talent there.
He's a good pass rusher.
So
he was.
Yeah. So I'm not saying the guys can't step up, but your only proven commodity at the defensive tackle position is Dalvin Tomlinson. And
it's one injury away from last year, probably.
Yeah, which is terrifying. So
yeah.
So I think I'm in a 7. I think I'm in a 7, and I there's a whole range of outcomes. The best case scenario is that either Ika or Hurst or Elliott step up next to Tomlinson, and you've got at least two formidable defensive tackles who are getting the job done, because we've seen Tomlinson be damn good, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can get just decent play, I think, because last year we said this too, but Jadeveon Clowney, and so here's the biggest difference that I want to point out. Jadeveon Clowney through his career has been inconsistent, and he's dealt with a multitude of injuries over the course of time. Yes, the peak of Jadeveon Clowney is somewhere around what Zadarius Smith has done. But Zadarius Smith, aside from last year when he was dealing with an injury, has been and even before then,
he still had double-digit sacks last year.
Still had double-digit sacks. But everywhere
more pressures than Myles Garrett.
Exactly. Everywhere Zadarius Smith has been, he's been consistently productive. Everywhere Zadarius Smith has been, he's given effort and hustle and intensity and been a part of the team stuff. And really, for the most part, even when he was injured, he still played through injury, right? So this is not a Jadeveon Clowney situation where we're saying, yeah, he was good for a year in Cleveland and we're hoping he can replicate it. And no, this is Zadarius Smith has gotten sacks, stats, and been productive everywhere he's been. So when I say, if you can just get decent play out of the defensive tackles, I'm confident in the defensive ends. I feel way better than I did. I feel way better relying on Zadarius Smith than I did feel about relying on Jadeveon Clowney. So, and Jacob, I know you're gonna jump in. There's a avenue to where this defensive line is a damn good one. And so I'm hoping we're way more on that range of outcomes than the other. If you ask me where things are going to be, I find myself agreeing with you that I'm not expecting the run defense to be stellar, but I am expecting it to be better. So I'm going to set.
So, and here's an interesting thought is like Tomlinson's not going to play every third down, just because that's where he is. He's going to play maybe 500 snaps over the course of a 17-game season. And my point about 500 snaps for Siaki Ika being a lot, that's in a 13-game season, not a 17. So that's my point in terms of his usage, I think, being way too damn high. And so I think he can improve his play by being a bit more rested in the NFL.
That's an average of just under 39 snaps a game.
Yeah,
for Ika, which is
feels like a lot for a guy that's primarily a nose tackle.
Yeah. And you know how those guys get worn down more than anybody, right? So
yeah, I mean, his job is literally to absorb blocks. Like, he's going to take doubles. Like, in the run game, his job is to take double teams in the run game. Like, but the good thing is Dalvin Tomlinson, it'll free Dalvin Tomlinson up a little bit. Myles Garrett and Tomlinson will free up some things for Ika, because I think they'll pay more attention to Tomlinson than Ika, at least early. Zadarius is by far the most talented player to play opposite Myles Garrett. Like, 100%. Clowney had one really good year there at the 9.5 sacks, or the 9, whatever it was, almost 10. Mm-hmm. Zadarius Smith has had double-digit stacks in 3 of the last 4 seasons. A lot of people are ranking him inside the top 10, at least in the AFC, in edge rushers. I don't believe that Clowney was ever ranked there.
I would not say so.
Maybe some people thought so going into a season, some of the seasons, because talent-wise it was there. It just never all got put together consistently. Connie brings up Schwartz being a key addition. That is a very, very good point.
Do you think Zadarius Smith would throw a shoe in the middle of a game?
I still think that was hilarious. I actually didn't hate it.
Man.
I mean, it was one of those things, like, in the moment watching the game, you're like, don't be a dumbass. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing, dude? But, like, afterwards, when you could take the emotion out of it, you're like, okay, that was pretty funny. Because, like, oh my God, I'll give Clowney credit. I've never seen him work so hard on a football field as he did in that game trying to get Lamar Jackson. And that dude, like, Lamar just had that was the most slippery. And Lamar's been an MVP, and I think that game was his most slippery as a runner. Like, because, I mean, Miles and Clowney in that game had him dead to the rights many times. And he was like, oh, whoop. It's just like, oh, just going to slip past you here. And just like,
I'll never forget Lamar's just fading back. He's got both of them just draped on him. He looks like he's dead to rights, and just throws this impossible touchdown to Mark Andrews. Yeah, I don't care. I don't care what team is playing. I don't care who the quarterbacks are. If you told me that the opposing quarterback is throwing 4 interceptions, I'm taking whatever team is getting them. And the Browns lost that game. I'm not mad. I'm not so mad.
What? We're not going to get to linebacker talk today because I have a new segment to debut in just a second. We're just having a
grand old time. It's July and we're having fun. So I hope you guys, we got a lot of active people with us. So I just want to say thank you to everybody, because if you're here sitting with us at 8 whatever and July 5th, I mean that's dedication. So shout out to you.
So that's enough football talk.
Okay.
It's now time for story time.
Let's go.
Nick, I think I've told you this story, but I want to retell this story.
Okay.
Well, I got 2 stories. What do you want to hear first? Do you want to hear the story of the dude that survived on a boat? Or do you want to hear the story of the 2 fat guys that fought at the Jets game last year?
Oh, I want to know the guys fighting at the Jets game. Tell me about it.
Okay, so we were at the Jets game
last
year, the heartbreaking Jets game, in which things imploded at the end. And I believe that when this happened, it was like, I think they just went up. Like, I think the Browns were winning. Like, this was definitely well before the failure. So we were winning. All right. We're winning. And I just hear behind me, and we're above the dog pound. So we're like the upper deck above. The dog pound's down below us. We're in a really good spot. I can really see the field well from there. And then we just hear, hey, hey, hey. And I was like, oh no. And so I turn around, and these are some real big fat dudes. And like, I'm not judging anybody that's a big old fat dude. I'm just telling you that these were 2 really fat dudes. And they were having a hell of a day. It was really hot, all right? It was really hot
that day. Oof.
And this dude is like, one dude's like here, right? He's like a row below the other dude that's like up here. Like, this guy's down here, you know, and he's up here. And he's just haymakers, just pow, 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 pow. He's just like, and the guy turns around and he's like trying to throw some punches back and he clocks him in the chin. And I was like, oh, holy shit, just pow, pow. And these guys are trying to get him off. And then he like puts him in a sleeper hold. He puts him in the sleeper hold. I'm like, oh my God. And then they finally break up the fat guy fight. And the one guy, I mean, I thought he was unconscious. Like he was like kind of like eyes rolled back. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, I sat back down. I was like, oh my God, because it was over. It was over. Security didn't get called or anything. That's the craziest part of this story. Maybe they did, but the guys left. And all of a sudden I look over and the guys are descending down the stairs and together. They came to the game together, Nick. They were brothers.
Oh my God.
In the one fat guy that had just beaten the hell out of his apparently brother was like rubbing his back and was like, are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, bro, you're the one that put him in this condition.
Jesus. Good Lord. Well, there's a lot of really painful days that have come at First Energy Stadium. And, I mean, we were both there for that game. I didn't know you were at that game. Jacob and I have been to a lot of really painful games. And
I just still don't know what he said. Like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, they're brothers, man. What do you think happened?
It had to be a disagreement. Like, maybe like one brother was like, hey, this Joe Woods guy, he's not so bad. The other guy was trying to tell him that Joe Woods couldn't find something with something else, and he
couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with it.
And maybe then Joe Flacco casually just flicks the ball to a wide open receiver, and then all hell breaks loose because they're just disagreeing about Joe. I'm going to blame Joe Woods. That's what I'm doing.
They left before the catastrophic meltdown. So think about the one guy that got beat up. The one guy got beat up by his brother in front of a lot of people. A lot of people were trying to break this fight up. And so the one guy got beat up by his brother in front of a bunch of people, and then watched a catastrophic failure on the field.
You know what? I can't imagine much worse than that, but I'll add to it. When we lost, I went and did the signature walk of shame.
Yeah.
And I was so depressed that we lost that game. We went back to the Muni lot because I was with Michael Cozy and DF, and we went back to the Muni lot, and I just laid on the ground in the Muni lot. It was me, Trash, and the Seagulls. And I just looked up at the sky and I listened to Cozy yell in Jet Spaces about how they were only win 3 games that year after we had just gotten our hearts ripped out. And me and the Trash, we bonded that day. And you have never seen, so I don't know why, but I've never gone back to the Muni lot after a Browns loss. There is nothing more depressing. Nothing. It's just the random drunk guy stumbling, muttering about whatever, and Michael Cozy yelling into spaces nonsense incoherently, and me in the Trash. I could cuddle up to like an empty Bud Light box, and a Seagull could, like, I don't know. There's no more insult to injury. So I don't think I've ever shared that, but it was worse. Jacobs was with me for when we got slaughtered by a Cardinals team without any coaches. And it was worse than that. It was somehow 36-year-old Joe Flacco, one last. I won't. I gotta stop. I'm not bitter.
That is. Oh no, Connie's got a story. Hell yeah!
Please,
all right.
Please.
All right, here we go. All right. When I worked in the flats, there was a line of cars, and for no apparent reason, 2 guys in cars, one behind the other, just got out of the cars and started fighting in the street. She said this was before cell phones.
Wow. Okay.
So, okay. Wait, hold up. Before we get out of here, hold on a second. Dude, we gotta. I got.
I'm in.
So, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, we were at the Guardians game, which we talked about on our Guardians podcast, Living the Guard Life. Check that out. Weekdays.
Giving away an Andres Jimenez bobblehead, by the way.
Yeah, this one. We're going to give away one of these over there.
Giving one away. So all you got to do is to let us know your favorite Guardian, and you will be entered to win.
So anyway,
if you want to comment your favorite Guardian here, you can enter that way too. Fine.
I'm driving. I'm in Cleveland. I'm down by the casino is where I was at. I was down by the casino.
Okay.
And when I was there, I start hearing this. What was pretty clear, it was yelling. And I'm like, what? And I like turn over, and there's this one dude like standing like basically right next to my car. Like he was a couple lanes over, but he was like with my car on the sidewalk. And this other dude that was crossing the sidewalk to go, like this guy, one guy was here, this guy was going to cross the sidewalk to walk then down this way, right? Okay. And so he was crossing it. I don't know. He's like, hey, I better not see you in this part of town anymore. And I'm like, and my buddy Jerry's in this, the passenger seat, and I'm like, he was on his phone, so he wasn't paying attention. I was like, look. And the one guy's like turns back, and they're like big, they're going at it like I wanted to roll the window down, but I didn't I thought it would be so I didn't roll the window down. But like they start bickering at it, and then the one guy starts walking like down the street, going away. This guy turns around and walks, then he comes back, he starts yelling at he's like, hey, don't you walk away from me. You both walked away for a second. What's going on here? And then just like screaming and yelling, and I'm just like, I gotta get out of here. I was like, I can get the hell out of here.
I feel like
there we go. There's a name. Joey Edibles chiming in. Andre Thornton, his favorite Guardians.
Shout out. Thank you.
Absolutely. There you go. I'll get you down on the list here. You
know what? It's never a dull, for better or for worse. It is never a dull time in Cleveland.
No, it's not.
It just no. And so I'm just hoping, as we go through that, this is the year where we get the better end. Because I will, it feels like forever ago, but I remember what 2020 was like. I remember what Baker Mayfield's rookie year was like, and just the enthusiasm and belief and just excitement that came along with it. Because Jacob and I, that's like the highest Browns hype we've had, right, in our fandom, and I just want more. I got a little taste, and I want so much more.
Yeah,
so
that's a good place.
That feels like a great place. And so I'm sorry that we didn't get to the linebackers, but Jacob and I are having I'm hoping you guys are having as grand of a time as we are.
And we haven't used it. All right. Fuck them.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, by all means. There it is. So, with that being said, this is episode 109.
Yeah.
109. Wow. The Barking Brown Show. I'm Nick. He's Jacob. Go Browns.
I'm going to recycle this one, but Australia, wider than the moon.